Hello everyone, Helen here. How are you doing? I hope you're all okay. And as you can see today, I am in the camper van, and that's because today's episode is all about our recent trip to Scotland. So we've been away for our first longer trip in the camper van. We went away for 5 nights to an area of Scotland called Fife, and I thought you might like to come along and see what we got up to. So welcome back if you're a regular viewer, and if you're new or if you've just come because you're interested in camper vans and visiting Scotland, then you're also very welcome. I'm not a camper van channel. My channel is really about all sorts of things, just all the things that I'm interested in. And one of the major things is just being creative and making things, knitting, crochet, all sorts of things. And I am actually later on going to show you which crafty projects I brought with me on holiday. But to begin with, I'm just going to take you through some of the things that we did while we were away. So I hope you're going to enjoy listening and seeing all of the video and things that I took while I was away. So yeah, without more ado, let's get on with it. So we set off from Durham, where I live, northwards. This is where we are on the map. We're about 270 miles north of London. And so we travelled for about 130 miles north, over the border into Scotland, to the county of Fife, which is just north of Edinburgh. We crossed the newest of the bridges across the Firth of Forth, just west of Edinburgh. It's called the Queensferry Crossing, and it was only opened about 5 years ago. It's 1.7 miles long, or 2.7 kilometres, and it's currently the longest 3-tower cable stay bridge in the world. The central tower was constructed on a large rock, but the towers either side are attached to giant steel cylinders below the level of the river, and the largest of these is taller than the Statue of Liberty, apparently. And they used over 23,000 miles of cabling in the bridge. And apparently you would need 48 double-decker buses stacked on top of each other to reach the top of the tallest tower. When we got over to the North Bank, we took a little detour to catch a view of the Forth Rail Bridge, which was first opened in 1890. And it has about 200 trains crossing it every day, travelling along the east coastline between London and Aberdeen, which is in the far north of Scotland. It's a cantilever bridge, and it's slightly shorter than the new Queensferry Crossing. Now, there's a myth that painting the Forth Rail Bridge is a never-ending job, but in fact that's no longer true, because a restoration programme completed in 2011 meant that painting shouldn't need to happen again until at least 2031. So we headed east along the Fife coastal road and stopped in a little town called Burnt Island, first for some delicious fish and chips, and then for our overnight stopping place, which was just a seaside car park next to the leisure centre in Burnt Island, and it didn't cost us anything to stay there. Part of our first full day was spent exploring the small seaside town of Kinghorn, and with sunny weather it was really a very pleasant place to wander around. We were actually very lucky to have sunny weather for most of our holiday. It was warm but not too hot. The beach at Kinghorn was practically deserted, and it all felt really peaceful. We found a little community cafe for our lunch, and then we returned to the coastal road to explore some more of the villages along the way. One of the villages that we stopped in, called Lower Largo, seemed to have quite an arty community. There was lots of unusual art on display, and I especially loved this gate. It also turned out to have been the birthplace of somebody called Alexander Selkirk, whose real-life adventures that involved getting shipwrecked inspired this story about Robinson Crusoe. A bit further on, we stopped in a little place called Ely, where I had some lovely, quiet crochet time to the sound of the waves, while Phil went off on a walk and found some very interesting geology, which he told me all about when he got back. We might have stayed there overnight if we hadn't already booked in at a campsite just inland from there. It was a lovely, quiet campsite. You can see us over in one corner of the field with the basic toilet and shower facilities in the opposite corner. It really was in a lovely setting, and I'd be quite happy to return there. Well, we weren't at all adventurous with our cooking while we were away. Mostly we ate out, or we just ate really basically in the van. And on this particular evening we had bacon butties for our tea, really delicious, and some fruit cake that I'd baked before we left home. And it was nice and sheltered where we were and warm enough for us to eat our breakfast outside the next morning, and that always feels like a real treat. So after breakfast we drove the short distance to St Andrews, the place that it's famous not only for its golf courses but also as the university that some of our royal family have attended. And we did pass by the tea room where Will and Kate used to meet up, but there was a very long queue outside it, so we didn't go in. We had a lovely time wandering around looking at some of the old buildings. It's always interesting to look up, and from this sign I learnt that a man who once worked in this stationer's shop in the 1700s owned the foundry in Philadelphia, USA, that was the first to cast the dollar symbol in 1797. So these funny little interesting facts. So after pizza for lunch, we decided to go on a clifftop walk, mainly because Phil had found out there were lots more interesting geological formations to go and see that caused by volcanoes and tectonics 300 million years ago. So I thought I'd give you a little taster of the walk. On our third full day, we drove to the coastal fishing village of Anstruther as we'd booked ourselves onto a boat trip. Before joining the boat, we had the chance to wander around the village, and we came across this beautifully decorated house, absolutely covered in shells. And although it does look in need of a bit of repair, it still looks rather impressive, especially to those of us who've used shells for making much smaller craft projects. The actual house was built in 1692, and the shells were added by a Victorian slater and plasterer in the 1840s. Apparently he also decorated his bedroom walls and also his own coffin, and he used to charge people to come and view it. He used to pay to go and see his decorated coffin. The house is known locally as Bucky House because Bucky is a local word for a shell. So we returned to the harbour for our boat trip, which took us out to the Isle of May, a tiny island in the middle of the Firth of Forth, and it's one of the primary breeding grounds for seabirds such as puffins, gannets, razorbills and Arctic terns. The island is currently closed to visitors. We have been there before and been able to walk around the island, but at the moment it's closed because of the bird flu problem. But we did have a really lovely trip around the island. This year there have been 65,000 breeding pairs of puffins, and although most of them had already left, we did spot quite a number flying or swimming on the sea, some of them with beaks packed full of eels. We saw a fair number of gannets too, although sadly there were quite a lot of dead gannets on the little beaches due to the flu. We also saw a large number of seals, though I didn't get any close-up video of them. I was just using my phone camera, but Phil kindly gave me a little bit of video that he took on his camera. It's a bit wobbly up and down because, yeah, the sea was going up and down quite a bit. On the journey out and along the east side of the island, the sea wasn't too bad actually, it was fairly smooth, but it became quite choppy on the west side and then all the way back to Anstruther. I've got good sea legs, but Phil definitely didn't want to eat his packed lunch until we were firmly back on dry land. We returned to St Andrews later that afternoon because I wanted to visit the huge beach there called West Sands. And this is where the opening scene for the brilliant film, well, I think it's brilliant, Chariots of Fire was shot. Although in the film it said that the athletes were training in Broadstairs, Kent, in England, but it was actually filmed here in Scotland. We stayed there for quite a while because Phil decided to fly his kite. There was quite a strong wind and he had to work very hard to control the kite, and it definitely required a lot of strength to keep it flying. Meanwhile, I did a little photo shoot with Pearl and Dean, and I sat on the beach and watched the kite flying, and I did a bit of knitting as well, so it was really nice. That night we stayed at an excellent campsite in a little place called Tayport, right in the north of Fife. We didn't have a lot of time to explore that little area, but we'd definitely like to return, and the Larrick campsite that we stayed on had first-class facilities. It was amazing. It was really good. The next day, after a little detour, so that Phil could go and see the Victorian Tay Bridge, the site of a rail disaster in 1879, when a storm caused the bridge to collapse into the water, we headed west for Falkirk to see a much more recent landmark, the Kelpies. These two gigantic 100-foot or 30-metre high metal sculptures of horses' heads were completed in 2013, and they were designed by an artist called Andy Scott. They were modelled on two real Clydesdale horses called Duke and Baron, and they represent the use of heavy horses in Scottish industry. And the Kelpies are also mythological creatures that have huge strength and can change shape. They're well worth a visit, and if you go when it's dark, you'll also see them lit up beautifully, which we were able to do because we stayed overnight in one of the car parks there just for a nominal fee. So we had a really excellent experience of Fife, and we really would like to go back there, although there's lots more places we want to visit as well. And as I mentioned earlier, I took some craft projects with me, and while I was away, because I'm not actually away at the moment, I'm just sitting in the camper van, while I was away I recorded a little bit of video for you to show you what I'd taken with me, so I'll show you that now. So now for a little peep inside my bag of crafts that I took away with me, and so this is it. I decided this was a suitable size of bag of crafts. Well, anything that didn't fit in there, it couldn't come. But I did want to bring a choice of things away with me, and I just thought that especially the crafters among you would be interested to know what I brought away with me. So, well, the first bag I'm going to take out of here, has got yarn in it to start making another of the Norwegian Christmas crackers. Haven't started that at all, so that's just there in case I want to do that. Something that I would say was essential for any of my trips away, and I'm sure lots of you will agree, and that is a bit of sock knitting. Now these poor socks had been neglected. Honestly, I probably started them in January actually, and I had an almost finished sock, and yeah, so I've managed to finish one sock, and start. I think I've just done the cuff. Yeah, I've done the cuff of another sock. But I mean, socks are really great for when you're travelling along, and if you know the sock pattern off by heart, which I do, they're really great for just knitting as you're travelling along even, or if you just want to zone out really and sit and do something with your hands. And then the other thing that I brought was this bag here, which has, it's quite, you can see it's quite packed full with yarn, but I've just brought the mandalas to crochet book with me and a little selection of colours, crochet hook of course, and yeah, I thought that would be a nice little project to work on, because I'm still slightly addicted to making mandalas at the moment, or doilies and things. I'm going to give a few as gifts this year. So, and the other thing that I've made while I've been away on this latest trip was a bag for Pearl, excuse me. So here she is, and I'll show you a closer up photo of that. I didn't have a pattern, but well, this was suggested to me by one of you lovely viewers, Karen, so thank you. I hadn't really thought about making Pearl her own bag, although Dean the dog has got his own little bag with something in it. I'll have to show you the contents of the bag some other times. But yeah, we were on a beach a couple of days ago as I record this, and I was taking photos of Pearl and Dean with shells and things, and I thought, oh yeah, she really does need a bag. Then she could put some shells inside when she's on the beach collecting. So yeah, so that's okay. Nice little bag. It is at the moment just tied with a bit of yarn because I didn't bring any buttons with me. I hadn't actually planned to do this while I was away, so I'll have to sew a button on when I get home. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. And actually I was showing you that I had a bag of mandalas, and I have actually made one. Where it is, it's screwed up in here. Yeah, so I have made one mandala since I've been away. But that still needs its ends tying in, and I will block it when I get home. So yeah, so that's the contents of my holiday craft bag. And actually in that video I completely forgot to mention that I had finished the crochet blanket that I was making for the camper van, and so I've just taken it off the seat now, and yeah, so here it is, all finished with a border, a little rainbow border. But well, I'm saying to you that it's finished, but in fact I'm going to take out, I think I'm probably going to take out the border and do it again. What does it look so bad now? Maybe yeah, it just wasn't lying flat. I started the border, and the short sides are completely fine. There's no problem with those. But it's just not lying flat. It's pulling. It's a bit tight. And I'm not really happy with it. My first attempt, I did 3. No, I didn't do 3. For every 2 rows I did 5 stitches, double crochet, or single crochet in American terms, and so I took that out because I knew straight away that wasn't any good. So then I did 6 stitches for every 2 stripes, and I thought that was okay. It seemed to be all right for the first couple of rows, but it's not. So I think what I'm going to do is take it out and use a bigger hook, and hopefully that'll solve the problem. But for the moment it can be used, nobody will notice, and I don't know, maybe I'll not get round to doing it. So yeah, so that's that. So I think that's me for this week then. Thank you if you've stayed all through that and come along with me on our little holiday. We've got more adventures planned, so I'll take you along on those as well. But for this week, I'm just going to leave you, and hope that you've got plenty of things to keep you busy. Not too many, but just enough. And keep taking care of yourself. And I will see you again ever so soon. Okay then. Bye.